Saint Rita, we come to you tonight with hearts that have known pain. Pain that did not come suddenly, but slowly. Pain that stayed longer than expected. Pain that required endurance we did not think we had. Saint Rita, you are close to those who have suffered quietly, to those who have remained faithful even when life felt heavy, to those who continued to love in difficult circumstances. Tonight, we come to you because our hearts are tired of waiting for change, tired of carrying wounds that have not healed, tired of being patient when patience has cost us much. Saint Rita, you understand suffering that is unseen by others. You understand what it means to endure hardship while remaining gentle. You understand how pain can shape the heart in quiet ways. Some hearts listening tonight have carried sorrow for a long time. Sorrow that has become familiar. Sorrow that has changed how they trust. Sorrow that has taught them to guard their hearts. Saint Rita, see the length of this suffering. See the strength it has required. See the courage it has taken to continue. Intercede for these hearts. For those who feel worn down. For those who feel misunderstood. For those who feel trapped in circumstances they did not choose. Saint Rita, help us trust that suffering is not meaningless. Help us believe that God sees every tear. Help us rest in the truth that God is close to the brokenhearted. We bring before you the situations that feel impossible. Relationships marked by conflict. Homes filled with tension. Paths that feel blocked, no matter how many times we try to move forward. We place them before God now. For those struggling in relationships, Saint Rita, pray for healing. For those enduring silence, pray for comfort. For those living with emotional pain, pray for peace. Saint Rita, you remained faithful even when love required sacrifice. You chose patience when bitterness could have grown. You chose trust when understanding was absent. Teach us that same patience. Teach us how to love without losing ourselves. Teach us how to endure without becoming hardened. Some of us listening tonight feel anger beneath the pain. Anger that feels difficult to release. Anger born from injustice. Anger born from repeated hurt. Saint Rita, see this anger. Help us bring it to God without fear. Help us release it without shame. Teach us that healing does not happen all at once. Teach us that forgiveness does not erase memory. Teach us that God works slowly within wounded hearts. Saint Rita, we lift up those who feel emotionally exhausted. Those who have tried to keep peace. Those who have carried responsibility for others' pain. Those who feel they have given more than they have received. Intercede for them. Ask God to restore strength. Ask God to renew hope. Ask God to steady hearts that feel fragile. Saint Rita, help us release the fear that nothing will ever change. Help us let go of the belief that endurance means silence. Help us trust that God welcomes our honesty. As the night grows quiet, help our breathing slow. Help our thoughts soften. Help our bodies begin to release tension. Saint Rita, remain close to us. Remain close when memories return. Remain close when emotions rise. Remain close and remind us that God is near. We offer this night to God. We offer our pain to God. We offer our long waiting into God's care. Saint Rita, we bring before God the wounds that still ache. Wounds formed by words spoken without care. Wounds left by silence where love was expected. Wounds that time alone has not healed. Some hearts listening tonight have learned how to survive pain. They have learned how to function while hurting. They have learned how to carry sorrow without letting it show. Saint Rita, see the strength this has required. See the patience it has demanded. See the quiet courage that has gone unseen. Intercede for these hearts. For those who feel emotionally drained. For those who feel misunderstood. For those who feel alone in their suffering. Saint Rita, we bring before you relationships marked by tension. Conversations that never brought peace. Efforts to reconcile that felt one-sided. Love that required sacrifice without assurance of change. We place them before God now. For those enduring conflict, Saint Rita, pray for wisdom. For those enduring silence, pray for comfort. For those enduring heartbreak, pray for healing. Saint Rita, You remained faithful when love became costly. You chose gentleness when anger could have grown. You chose patience when bitterness could have taken root. Teach us that same gentleness. Teach us how to protect our hearts without closing them. Teach us how to endure without losing compassion. Some of us listening tonight carry resentment we do not want. Resentment that feels heavy. Resentment that feels exhausting. Resentment that lingers even when we try to let it go. Saint Rita, help us bring this resentment to God. Help us release it slowly. Help us trust that healing does not require haste. Teach us that forgiveness is a journey. Teach us that boundaries can coexist with love. Teach us that God honors our honesty. Saint Rita, we lift up those who feel responsible for keeping peace. Those who feel pressured to remain calm. Those who feel guilt for expressing pain. Intercede for them. Ask God to relieve their burden. Ask God to remind them that their feelings matter. Ask God to grant them rest. Saint Rita, we bring before you the fear that conflict will never end, the fear that hearts will never soften, the fear that change is impossible. We place these fears before God now. For those weighed down by fear, Saint Rita, pray for reassurance. For those discouraged by slow progress, pray for patience. For those tempted to give up, pray for strength. Help us trust that God works in hidden ways. Help us believe that hearts can change in time. Help us rest in God's gentle care. Saint Rita, some of us listening tonight carry grief for what could have been. Dreams that did not unfold, hopes that feel lost, expectations that were never met. See this grief. See the longing beneath it. See the love that still remains. Intercede for us. Ask God to comfort wounded hearts. Ask God to bring peace where disappointment lingers. Ask God to restore hope without forcing it. Saint Rita, help us release the belief that suffering defines us. Help us trust that pain does not erase worth. Help us believe that endurance is seen by God. Teach us how to rest without replaying the past. Teach us how to breathe without tension. Teach us how to sleep without carrying the weight of unresolved pain. Saint Rita, as the night grows deeper, help our thoughts slow. Help our breathing steady. Help our bodies soften. Remain close to us. Remain close when emotions surface. Remain close when memories return. Remain close and remind us that God is near. We place our wounded hearts into God's care. We place our strained relationships into God's hands. We place our hope into God's keeping. Saint Rita, we bring before God the quiet loneliness we carry, the loneliness that exists even when others are near, the loneliness that comes from feeling unheard, the loneliness that grows when pain is misunderstood. Some hearts listening tonight have learned to be strong for everyone else. They have learned to comfort others while neglecting themselves. They have learned to endure without asking for support. Saint Rita, see this hidden loneliness. See the longing to be understood. See the desire to be held without explanation. Intercede for these hearts, for those who feel unseen, for those who feel emotionally isolated, for those who carry pain without a place to release it. Saint Rita, we bring before you the inner battles we fight quietly, battles with patience, battles with resentment, battles with the fear that things may never improve. We place them before God now. For those struggling internally, Saint Rita, pray for peace. For those wrestling with bitterness, pray for healing. For those feeling overwhelmed, pray for calm. Saint Rita, help us believe that our inner struggles matter. Help us trust that God sees what others do not. Help us rest knowing that nothing within us is hidden from God. Some of us listening tonight carry guilt for feeling tired, guilt for needing rest, guilt for feeling frustrated, guilt for wishing things were easier. Saint Rita, help us release this guilt. Help us believe that rest is not selfish. Help us trust that God understands our limits. Teach us that patience does not mean ignoring pain. Teach us that endurance does not require silence. Teach us that God welcomes our honesty. Saint Rita, you lift up those who feel trapped in patterns of conflict, patterns of disappointment, patterns of hoping and being hurt again. Intercede for them. Ask God to break cycles that cause pain. Ask God to open new paths that feel impossible. Saint Rita, help us surrender the belief that we must fix everything. Help us release the weight of responsibility we were never meant to carry alone. Help us trust that God is at work beyond our effort. Some hearts listening tonight are afraid of the future, afraid of continued pain, afraid of repeated loss, afraid that peace will never come. Saint Rita, hold these fears gently. Help us bring them to God without shame. Help us release their grip on our hearts. Teach us that fear does not cancel faith. Teach us that uncertainty does not separate us from God. Teach us that trust can exist alongside fear. Saint Rita, we bring before you the memories that resurface at night. Moments we wish we could change. Words that still echo painfully. Experiences that left deep marks. We place them before God now. For those haunted by memory, Saint Rita, pray for healing. For those burdened by regret, pray for mercy. For those struggling to move forward, pray for hope. Help us trust that God's mercy reaches the past. Help us believe that healing does not erase memory, but softens its weight. Help us rest without reliving old pain. Saint Rita, help us believe that suffering is not our identity. Help us trust that pain does not define our future. Help us rest knowing that God's love remains constant. As the night continues, help our thoughts slow. Help our breathing deepen. Help our bodies feel safe enough to rest. Remain close to us. Remain close when loneliness returns. Remain close when fear arises. Remain close and remind us that God's presence does not leave us. We place our inner battles into God's care. We place our fears into God's hands. We place our trust into God's keeping. Saint Rita, we place this night completely into God's care. Not because our pain has vanished, but because God remains faithful. Not because every wound has healed, but because God continues to work within us. We bring before God the intentions we have carried silently, the prayers we have repeated when words felt insufficient, the hopes we protected even after disappointment. We place them here now, without forcing answers, without demanding change, without needing to understand how healing will come. Saint Rita, carry these intentions before God. Hold them with tenderness. Intercede for us with patience and trust. Help us release the tension that has settled in our bodies. Help us let go of the need to stay alert. Help us trust that we are allowed to rest. As the night deepens, help our minds quiet. Help our thoughts slow. Help our breathing become calm, steady, and gentle. For those who struggle to sleep, Saint Rita, pray for peace. For those whose hearts remain heavy, pray for comfort. For those whose thoughts return to pain and worry, pray for stillness. Saint Rita, help us surrender our fear. Fear that suffering will continue. Fear that hearts will never soften. Fear that peace will always feel distant. Help us trust that God's compassion does not grow tired. Help us believe that healing unfolds gently, in its time. Help us rest knowing that God is near. We place our lives into God's hands tonight. Our pain, our patience, our unanswered prayers, our becoming. Saint Rita, remain close to us through the quiet hours of the night. Remain close when memories surface. Remain close when emotions stir. Remain close and remind us that we are not alone. May God's peace settle softly over us now. May our bodies relax. May our hearts feel lighter. May our minds find rest. Saint Rita, pray for those we love. Pray for those who suffer silently. Pray for those enduring difficult relationships. Pray for those who feel close to giving up. We surrender this night to God. We surrender tomorrow to God. We surrender our long journeys into God's care. And now we rest, trusting that God sees us, trusting that God heals gently, trusting that hope remains. Saint Rita, pray for us. Amen.